Hello, everybody. Welcome to Community CPA's 3 p.m. webinar. My name is Catherine, and I work with Ying at Community CPA. So today is Thursday, so we have our guest speaker here today, who will be interviewing Henny Ohr from EMBARC. So, hi, Henny. Welcome.
Hello. This is my first time live on Facebook, so memorable for me. Thank you for inviting me to come speak with you.
We'll be sure to tag you. So I wanted to introduce Henny. Henny is one of the founders and is the executive director of EMBARC, which is a nonprofit organization in our community based in Iowa. Henny, welcome.
Hello, Catherine. Great to be here. I didn't know that Ying Sa had a book about. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh, maybe my book would be titled Still Sleeping at 7 in the morning. So, a fun fact about Ying Sa, when EMBARC was just an idea, I met with Ying Sa and she was very supportive. And then when EMBARC, the first year of EMBARC, we really needed some advice and help with getting some structures in place. So she was really great. So, yeah.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Henny, tell us a bit more about EMBARC and what you all are doing.
My gosh. Well, EMBARC was started in 2011. Our first meeting was November of 2011, where we were seeing refugees from Burma were arriving to Iowa. And unlike other refugee immigrant populations, there weren't generations before that had the language. And there's so many different languages and they are mutually unintelligible. So we got together with the different ethnic communities from Burma and said, what can we do together to help our community? And that was really intentional in saying that we wanted to start with the community, the ones who were doing the work. And we had that first meeting in November 2011, and we just started. We just started to help however we could, and whether it's getting donations or at that time it really was essential needs. People were not able to access food or resources or warm clothing in the winter, so we started, like many passionate people and is what can we do around us and where do we start? So that's where we started, and for 2 years we were all volunteer. We got our 501c3 in 2012. We got our first grant in end of 2013, and then we got an office space in 2014, and here we are 6 years later, and it's a privilege.
How did you get involved in that meeting and in helping that community?
I was actually at the Department of Human Rights with the Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs Office, which advocates really on a macro level. I mean, it's an office of one, and I think we're 50 different nationalities, Asians. So I'm going out to the community just to hear and to listen. And so, through that process, I met a lot of refugees from Burma who are new arrivals who said, we need help, right? We need help right now, and what can we do? And so it came from there, and just started to get involved.
Excellent. So I did already ask you, we're already talking about this, but the population that you were serving at the time were a lot of Burmese. What are some of the populations that are currently served by EMBARC?
Yeah, look at that. I'm running through the slides, So, we started with the refugees from Burma, and like I said, it's many different languages and ethnic groups. To give an example, in Des Moines, in Polk County, there's probably 20 different independent faith organizations that are organized just from the refugees from Burma. And we started with, and I, when I was at the Human Rights Department, we were working also with the Bhutanese, were arriving in larger numbers than others. And I decided to really focus on the refugees from Burma from a principle of equity, of like who are really in crisis. And then from that, our model is empowerment from within, doing with, not for, respecting really the talent and the intelligence and the capacity for the community to help themselves. Oftentimes, because it's not your agency or others that you go to, people within the communities from Burma were helping each other. I had a board member, a founding board member, who was the emergency contact for over 100 families for the school, because she was the only one who spoke English, right? So that's where we wanted to start. And now we are with the Refugee Rise AmeriCorps program, and now we've changed it to RISE. It stands for Rebuild, Integrate, Serve, and Empower. We conceptualized that and we launched it in 2015, but that is the vehicle to grow leadership, to grow community, and build community organizations that are refugee and immigrant led outside of the Burma community. So trying to really encourage more mutual aid associations and ownership within other groups is really important. But it's not that EMBARC is serving the Congolese, it's the Congolese serving themselves, and we want to support that. So that distinction is important.
Totally. And here it says it's the first refugee-led social service organization in Iowa. So that's great.
It's exciting. Who knew that we would last? I surely didn't.
Well, I am glad that you have. So you mentioned the Refugee Rise program. What are some of the key areas of focus that EMBARC works on, and highlighting a few of the programs? So this is the RISE that you've talked about.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think the statistics you see on the slide now with the RISE AmeriCorps program is just from the recent COVID-19. I think it was critical to have the AmeriCorps program. AmeriCorps is also there for emergencies and disasters, right? So our AmeriCorps members had to pivot from what is the primary function, which is education and employment and wraparound services, to disaster, crisis response, and recovery. And from that part, because we have members that speak over 32 languages all throughout the state, we were able to mobilize quickly and start a crisis helpline, virtual access center, so that it was language specific lines. We were able to do news and information in the beginning almost on a daily basis in 10 different languages. That kind of ability to be nimble and to be rooted in what the community needs was critical. And so I'm amazingly proud of our members. Our host sites, our program sites throughout the state. We have Bridges of Storm Lake, we have CMC in Cedar Rapids. We have so many, and we all are working together to really meet the need of where they're at. So that was incredible. That's our RISE. You'll see from the other slides too, our model is, it's train the trainer, peer-to-peer, where you are at. So we have a parent navigator program, moms teaching other moms, right? And in order to be a good mom, you don't need to speak English. So how could we teach and then have everyone share that information and support one another? And it's been tremendously successful. We are really, really seeing change, because you're seeing the change in terms of knowledge, in terms of confidence, in terms of ability to access services, mental health, because you have support groups. And we're focused on what it is to learn for that person, right? It's what we do, if you have a family, it's what you do for your children. So, the Karenni parent navigator will go and teach about parenting that she's learned, but she's going to tailor it to the level the scale and the scope of what is important for that mom. So, and then we, the same thing. We have Reach is our health navigator project. We also have a community-based English, which is in partnership with LSI. So everything is about how can we train those in the community who can then share their knowledge and support others. It's a longer process. It takes more time and effort, but it's sustainable. You don't, if you're going based on just information or education or just services, that means you learn something, but I don't know how much. I don't know how many classes or presentations have we been part of webinars and things that I completely forgot.
Right.
And then, tying it in. So if I say, okay, hey, I really want to tell you the importance of preschool. And then someone says, okay, well, I'd like to send my child to preschool. Then what? Who's going to help them with immunizations? Who's going to help them navigate the system if you don't speak English, with all of the different barriers? So having a systems integrated model that takes into account the whole family, with it being led by a community member with that lived experience and the trust, right? You got to have that trust, and you got to be able to communicate, not just provide interpreters just at those discrete moments. That's what it's about. And that's Reach. That's all of our programs. And it's tailored to really trying our best to listen and to make things accessible and ultimately resolve or help move things forward.
Awesome. So your ELL, your English language classes, they are with LSI. How many sites do you currently, how have you been doing this since COVID?
Actually, the transition initially was rough, but now we're doing really well. This is a program that is run by Lutheran Services in Iowa, but we are a program site, and we run it a little different in that we have teachers or co-teachers, facilitators from the Burma community. Right now we have 3 classes online. There's one who's Karenni, one who's Chin, and one who is Karen, who help the teacher who has the background in teaching and ESL knowledge, but that co-teacher is critical. They're helping to explain, they're helping to problem solve if there's issues and barriers. And so after getting through the initial divide or understanding about how to use video conferencing, we've seen a lot of participation. And it really is, I think, because of the co-teachers and who we have. One co-teacher used to be a teacher in the refugee camp, and so everyone knows her and respects her, and people really come because they feel like this is a space where they can feel comfortable.
Right. I love that model. I love that model. I think it's a really great one because someone from the community is able to talk to them in a different way than just like, oh, a teacher teaching a class, right?
Right.
Best attendance rates of all ESL classes in Des Moines. I didn't know that. So
I didn't know that either. No, I'm just joking. No, and it's also really important. The relationship between the teacher and the co-teacher is really important. You can be a really amazing teacher, but the cultural understanding and the humility or putting things in context, that needs to happen in conversation. So almost everything that we do, we have like a paired team model where and it's equitable. I mean, you have someone who's like our RISE program, where it's a team model. You have someone who is of refugee and immigrant heritage, and maybe that person has just graduated high school and is at a English level of 4th grade, right? They bring tremendous assets and skills. They might not know the digital literacy skills, and so then we pair them. So the value of each person and what they bring is recognized in our model.
Totally. And I think we also, Community CPA as a firm also values that we know that, having a language and a cultural background is an asset. You know, they might not have the full savvy of other aspects, right? But some of those can be taught, and
Sure.
those other things can be critical to success. So
I agree.
yeah. So we talked a bit about how COVID has impacted, the refugee communities. Can you talk a bit more about that and how you've responded to the needs?
I mean, nobody was prepared for this. And I think in terms of what might not be visible is that the refugee and immigrant community were disproportionately impacted. The
Right.
majority of people who of our community are essential workers. They were all going to work. Many of them work at meatpacking plants. So we were seeing, I would say, 7 out of 10 people, and many on our team as well, getting COVID or with a family member who had COVID. It was, I can't tell you. I mean, I think in March and April when it hit, it was like a tsunami. All of a sudden, what was hard to access became almost impossible, right? You see all this information about, okay, these are the food pantries. Well, someone needs to be able to get there. Someone needs to be able to fill out those forms. If you need to get rental assistance, it's not just the application, but you need documentation and evidence. Right? And that requires time and requires constant communication, right? So it really showed the systemic issues and lack of infrastructure in terms of what it means to be equitable for resources and services. It also showed the strength and the resilience and of the community and the mainstream Iowans who really pitched in to volunteer to drop off 300 lunches a day, like with Des Moines Public School. We were able to mobilize volunteers who could pick up and drop off those lunches to those families who couldn't pick up the lunches themselves. So, that's the times worth the times, I guess, it brings out.
Right, for sure. And then you talked a bit about the hotline, I believe. So this is something new that developed. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, there's some great helplines out there. I mean, 211 is a tremendous resource. I think it's the language and the ability to navigate. It's not just information we need. It's not information about where to go to get food. It's how. And support. So having lines by language rather than having to have someone on English or then to press a button, that's sometimes a matter of life and death. We had people who couldn't breathe. We had families who didn't have food. We had those who were COVID and had nowhere to go. And we did this with, flying by the seat of our pants. Right. We did this with all our AmeriCorps members. We did this with Ally volunteers and using Google Voice numbers. We created that system so quickly. Because we're a grassroots nonprofit that's tied to the community. And we were getting calls at the peak, like at 100 calls a day.
Wow.
So, and I don't think many people know about our hotline and our access center, because that's the one thing that I think we didn't have time for, is to share with like the public, because our goal was to really get that information to the community who needed it. And the refugee and immigrant community with those lines did call us. We saw we created videos and audio about COVID and how to, everyone was bombarded with that if you speak English. And meanwhile, for others, nothing. We don't have any news, any information. We don't know what's going on. Our kids are at home. I mean, so, yeah, I think I appreciate the opportunity to share about this. And we did try to create a report around it. But that is what I think for us is our mission, is to meet community where they're at and to, you know, work from an empowerment perspective and
Yeah,
leadership perspective.
I knew about the hotline, but I didn't realize how it developed. So that's very interesting. And you think of like how confusing COVID was at the beginning, especially even for people who did speak English, right? Like there was just a lot of not just misunderstanding, but like we just didn't know very much about it at the time. So having access to a place to call, I think is huge. Is this still ongoing? Is the hotline still going on?
We have paused the crisis helpline because many of it is dependent on the AmeriCorps member program sites. What we're trying to do is change it to be more local. So this was also a statewide effort. So people from the different who spoke those languages would take calls, and then we'd have to figure out what's available locally, and that looks very different for each site. So what we're trying to do now with our program sites is work with them to see what they can provide in terms of crisis services, and creating a system, because this was created just on the fly. But at the same time, we really do have a default crisis line because we do get calls all the time from our members and others. It's not that formalized. So it's by program site. And then we hope to send something out soon. I know like when derecho hit, we have program sites there. Catherine McCauley Center, we have Hoover Elementary School, several who are on the ground, and and because they're in those communities, they were able to mobilize really, really quickly. And now we've partnered with the COVID-19 AmeriCorps program so that we're able to mobilize, I think, at least 12 AmeriCorps members that speak the languages of the community in need. That's what's needed, right? Someone to, like, it's community CPA, you have someone, it's not just, I'm going to call you once, I'm going to call you with questions. It's a conversation. Right. I know, Catherine, with your leadership with the Iowa Entrepreneurship Summit, I think, you have been really interested in trying to reach out to the refugee community and seeing how we can make things more accessible. But that takes time, right? It takes time and it takes resources. I've seen all of the good stuff that you've been doing and sending out information. And that's important. And then, like, if we had more time and resources to focus, how could we then do it at an English language level or meet them where they're at, right? And so, I think that's constantly what we're striving for.
Right, for sure. And then I saw on your social media channels that you have these videos to update. So I've been very impressed by those different language videos, I will say.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I think when you're in the thick of things, right? I'm sure like with you with organizing the summit, is like, oh my gosh, all I see is problems. Oh my gosh, I got to edit that. Oh no, you see languages all mixed up. You're like, who? All of a sudden, yeah, and all of us, everyone had to learn how to edit and proofread and all of those things. And then now I step back and you're like, wow, I can't believe we did that. And we hear from people that we've been watching. We've been, you've been the place that we get news and information. And so I think our next step is to really formalize a process to get constant feedback and to do what we haven't been able to do with our programs, which are in-person learning circles, where we go to homes and just gather as a circle. We're trying to do that over video and phone, and it's been really working. We just started a IT navigator project where we did an assessment with like the parent navigator moms and others to see where they're at. And it takes time to show people how to download something and press mute and all. So we're excited about that kind of progress. And thank you very much for the compliment of noticing our news.
Yes, for sure. So if somebody is interested, how would they get involved with what you're doing? What are the needs right now that someone can jump in?
There's a
I
lot
just
of
this
needs.
from your website.
What's that? You know,
I
you
just
can
pulled this
call
from-
me. You can email me personally at henny@embarkiowa.org. Right now things are so unpredictable and triaging. We really need people who have the heart and the patience and to walk with us and to help. Like, what is it? I mean, we need mentors. We need family sponsors. We need tutors. We need people who are good at IT. We need attorneys. We need all of those skill sets. And we're trying to build it based on who has that passion and motivation to be with us and work with us. So, and there's many other ethnic community-based organizations or refugee immigrant-led organizations that also are doing tremendous work. They also need volunteers, but the volunteer opportunity might not be very structured, right? Because we're trying to build it as we go. So that's why I stress, like, you know, maybe if you reach out to volunteer, you might not hear from someone right away. Or maybe if you get a volunteer assignment, there won't be someone to like talk to who's a volunteer man, because there is no volunteer coordinator. We really are. It's just so, but any questions, any interest, please reach out.
Yeah, so I have the website here, but I didn't put your email address.
They can find me. So yeah, please call. Please, I would give you my home address, but I don't think that's allowed. So, and Catherine, you did a really great job. Look at getting all that information.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Henny, for your time today. I loved hearing about the initiatives as a grassroots organization, as a community-led effort. And I think that's something that's very valuable that we have here. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I hope we can turn the tables and interview you and the work that you're doing and your leadership. So I really appreciate it.